Hello friends, a very warm welcome to Ansarkari, and in this session again we are going to pick up a lot of different themes and ideas. You have been making your own notes, so that is why you must try to classify them also in your mind so that you can divide into general studies subjects and also very important for paper 2 of economics, public administration, political science, anthropology and even sociology apart from history. Even geography can also be supported. So let's see and try to handle ideas from the perspective of the prelims, mains, and even personality test. The first photograph is showing Prime Minister Narendra Modi with the BRIC members and partners and outreach invitees in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So, what this photograph is actually depicting India's position, India's growing leadership. It is not a misnomer because at the time when geopolitical and strategic changes are taking place, India is holding its ground. India is moving ahead, may not be perfectly, but it is moving on. If you see a couple of aspects, Trump is unveiling 25% of tariff on South Korea and Japan, but not on India. India is eyeing an extended deadline because things move in a smart way. We are not a pushover force. On the other hand, when the US says that the BRIC is acting as anti-US group, then the China and Russia, they say that BRICS is actually not targeting anyone. BRIC is following the rules consistent with the WTO, and BRIC is much more than that. How do we say so? We say so because BRICS, a body which originally had Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, it expanded in 2024 and it went on to include Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and UAE. Indonesia is joining in 2025. I'll show you a graphic representation also. So, do you say that BRICS is a block of confrontation? Block for confrontation, I should say? Or would you agree with my fact that BRIC is actually multipolar body? BRIC is a body of inclusion. BRIC is a body of diversity. BRIC is a body of a very important platform for cooperation among emerging markets and developing countries, in which both India and China they are competing actually. BRICS group should be seen as a push for reformed multilateralism. These are the keywords you should write down. The objectives are primarily about creating a more balanced and inclusive global order rather than anything else. A better reflection of the economic and political realities of the 21st century is reflected through BRICS. So BRIC is a strength. That is why whatever US is saying, it is the other way around. That is why even if US is unveiling a 25% tariff on South Korea and also in Japan, it is going to impact and it is going to add to uncertainty. It is going to increase burden on these countries, and then overall, every country will have to be ready. If they are not competitive, if they are not standardized, if they are not having clarity, then they will perish, like the way we perish in the prelims and the mains examination, and then we try again and move towards success. Another aspect for general studies paper 2, I would say here is law on the phone tapping, and there are two different high court rulings are there. There are laws on phone tapping, but they have to have a procedural standard. They have to have a certain kind of basis behind it that when you allow phone tapping, then what is the reason? Just think of it. What can be the reason? Public safety, public emergency, public order, and even national security. They are the reasons. Indian Post Office Act, Indian Telegraph Act, and the Information Technology Act 2020. But then High Court says that if it is of paramount importance for the nation, if it is a grave economic offense, if it is going to increase corruption, but it must not be roving and fishing. It must not be, done when there are other ways and means available. That is what both Delhi High Court and even Chennai High Court, Madras High Court, I must say, is trying to convey, because they say that public emergency and public, security safety, they must be sought through a standard protocol. So procedural norms must not be given up, and under any circumstances, that is what is right. Another example is of the world's largest, astronomical camera is here, which is known as Rubin's Simony survey. So Milky Way structure one can understand and look at it. Dark matter and dark energy, solar system sensors, and the changing sky. These are not just the keywords. Very important for the prelims. Very important. You have to understand what goes beyond this. What is the dark matter? Why and how 40 full moons are arranged in one line, and they are going to make sure the things are changing. So that is why it is a kind of a revolution. So near Earth objects and even far away objects, when once you see and understand, you can understand the evolution of universe. That is what is very important for the prelims. Even for the prelims, India-UAE relationship, you have to just see, not the golden visa scheme per se, but then what is the trade between two countries, what is the location, what are actually the remittances, and how India-UAE is continuing with their strategic partnership. Again, for the mains examination, that why Kashmir is facing such long dry spells, what is the concept of urban heat island that is going to come up in the mains, because in the prelims it is very, very open-ended, that is why it is not going to come up. So there are whenever there are long dry spells, because there are 4 distinct seasons in Kashmir, when there are long dry spells, and on the top of it, when the snow is melting from the mountains and mountains are getting bare, so temperature is bound to rise, especially because of concretization, because of deforestation, and so forth. That is why it is very, very important to behave, very, very important to live sustainably, very, very important to acknowledge the future challenges which are going to come up in terms of extreme weather. So try to think as a public functionary, as a public servant, what 2 things you would do to reverse the change of this heating pattern, I would say, in great exotic locations like Kashmir. There are new rules for app-based cab rides. So what is this an example of? This is an example of policy. And on the other hand, it is an example of urban governance because it is happening in the urban areas. It is also an example that how a state government is listening to the people's grievances. There are different stakeholders, including the app ride owners. So how do you see? Should there be a standardized way? Because the app-based taxis, the bikes are actually banned in Bengaluru, but the e-bikes are allowed in Mumbai, and different kind of approaches taken a place in Delhi. So when there is a peak time, should there be a price surge? If the price surge is there, according to you, uh, how you are going to speak up if it is asking the personality test, that what is your view with respect to that? We will discuss all this. There is another pretty fact. Novak Djokovic has become the second male player to win 100 matches each in the 2 Grand Slams. So we must know about the basic bits and bits of the Grand Slams, especially with respect to the recent winners and also with respect to the great work done by Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer, and even Rafael Nadal, apart from Serena and Venus Williams. Again, coming back to BRICS, what is holding back global south as a force? Is it really the case? Because when you see that 10 years ago, the GDP, the GDP growth for the G7 was more, and BRICS and developing economies were little less. But then after 15 years, I would say in last 15 years, the things have changed for more. Because BRICS is representing 40% of the world population, and BRICS plus is accounting for 48%, while G7 is only having about 10%. So we have to understand. This is very, very important infographic. So BRIC economies has been closing gap with the G7 nations in GDP, and time will be changed very, very different. So there is a map shown over here. One must be very, very particular about drawing this when it is showing that what was in 1990, what was in 2010 and 2024. Similarly is the case with the India's trade with the BRICS plus, it is higher, but then there is a role for the China also, and US is also playing a crucial role. And do you think, in terms of democracy, in terms of governance patterns, that one kind of system is there? There are different kind of systems ranging from authoritarian to democracy and so forth with respect to developing countries. In all this, what do you think India's role must be? Again, a very good example and a role model and a system shown by Tamil Nadu, which is forcing the investors to come up in new areas in Tamil Nadu, which had never been, part of great industrialization process. So Tamil Nadu model is a role model for rest of India, that which are the smaller towns and areas which are not having great presence. How it will be creating social infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and providing best of the amenities and facilities for industrialization. That is what it is taking place. In last 4 years, things have started changing for it. So it has learned its lesson well from countries like China. Other Indian states must also play in this. So can you tell me what are the policies at the national level which are facilitating Tamil Nadu to move forward? And it is a very good example of fiscal and even cooperative federalism between center and state. Defense manufacturing push is very, very important. You have to see from the perspective of the mains examination that if a question comes on defense indigenization, what are you going to write? What startups you will write? What PSU's name will you write? What kind of ecosystem will you write? What kind of future you are going to show? And what is the percentage of expenditure that you're going to show? Because the defense expenditure push is going on. and it is very, very important, especially with respect to the changing circumstances and the geopolitical tensions. So in this regard, what are the challenges and bottlenecks? क्या procurement challenge है, कि design challenge है, कि delivery challenge है, कि sustenance challenge है, कि हमारे पास best है ही नहीं. So it is from this perspective you have to see and look forward to it. Tree ambulances to smart watering systems. NDMC is launching a plantation drive for the Green India green cover. So this is an example of how a local urban body can create a model, and then what kind of efforts it must make. For example, gap filling campaign. That means covering the potholes. Similarly, smart watering system to save water. A drip irrigation system or the water sprinklers, they are there in the lawns and gardens. Similarly, एक पेड़ माँ के नाम program. तो ये चीजें showcase करती हैं that how you can create a very amazing ecosystem. For example, at Lodi Garden, uh, there is a tree ambulance, tree surgery, termite and pest control, soil treatment. Everything is done by a dedicated team of one supervisor and 4 staff members. So this is possible for NDMC. What about rest of the India? Because despite covering only 3% of Delhi's total geographical area, NDMC contributes nearly 55% of the city's green cover. So this is very, very amazing. It is the greenest urban local body in the country. Everybody must run from it. Great Nicobar project, very important project. So 5 points you must think of it from the prelims perspective. You must see where is Great Nicobar. You must see how far it is from Myanmar and how far it is from rest of the countries below south, and then what kind of vision we are having with creation of a Great Nicobar project. It is strategic, it is economic, it is defense, and so forth. So what kind of process due diligence we are following, including Environmental Protection Act. So funds are released for leatherback, sea turtle, Nicobar megapod conservation plans for long-tailed macaque, coconut crab, and conservation of native flora and fauna, among others. This is very, very important. It's a mega project. The NGT has granted time for the applicant's counsel to file a rejoinder to the ministry's additional affidavit, and the matter is adjourned as of now. So, but then, do you really think we will be able to make a balance between the greenery, the ecosystem, and also our needs and our security desires, and which are very, very important for our future? So, both the perspective you have to see, and the environmental cost of the environment management plan, the total cost of the environment management plan for wildlife conservation, compensatory afforestation, tribal welfare plan, conservation and mitigation. This is going to cost around 10,000 crores. So from this perspective, you have to think, and the role of NIDCO and other bodies. PM takes aim at China's rare earth stranglehold. It is telling the rest of the world, including China, that this is not the way, and they are actually weaponizing resources, weaponizing tariffs, weaponizing those strategic assets which are very, very important for the global supply chain and also for trade and commerce. But if someone says like Pakistan that India is also weaponizing Indus River, how do you react to this? You write down in 2 points. TN triage model throws up lessons in reducing TB deaths. Again, we are going to the core. The model is essentially a simple triaging process based on the 5 key health parameters. And the 5 key health parameters including BMI, swelling of the leg, respiratory rate, oxygen saturation, and ability to stand without support. The patient who don't meet these markings, then they are tagged as severely ill and they are referred to inpatient care. So this immediate care can cut probability of early death in severely ill people up to 50%, says National Institute of Epidemiology. This is very, very important. So a patient is tagged basically, and due care is taken care of rather than waiting for the worst to happen. Peace is nothing but an illusion. We are preparing for uncertainty. We are working in the right direction. We are working on defense, on strategy, on socio-economic development, on harmony. And all this is done because India wants to move ahead in a peace, prosperous, and confident way. Why BRICS? Again, I just say that question must be asked about investing political diplomatic capital in a forum that no longer serves India's interest. This is a question which is raised, and BRICS is having its own, contradictions. BRICS is having its own whims and fancies. So, is it going to create a post-American order? Is it possible that the BRICS will be able to create post-American order? And the BRICS call to save the World Trade Organization, when they are in fact, like China is also, creating hurdles into it, and Trump is hell bent on destroying, one would say, the international trade system. So Washington built certain systems after the Second World War, and when the BRICS speaks about reforming Bretton Woods system, Trump is precisely doing that by pressing for change at the World Bank and the IMF. So that is why things are moving, but then they are not moving in the way India would have desired, because India's economic and also other kind of challenges, including security challenges, they are presented by China and Pakistan, which is much bigger than posed by the American hegemony. So Saudi Arabia and UAE are also worried, as Israel and US, uh, they are moving ahead, and then Iran is also there. So it is a kind of a hodgepodge situation. Rio Declaration has no answers for these things. So in these circumstances, India must think beyond and must think smartly, because a decade back, when the grouping was putting such perspective which were helpful for India directly, now is not such the case. So why do you think that India must continue to invest too much into BRICS, and why not move forward? SEBI is studying the net losses of individual traders in F&O widened by 41% in the financial year 25. That is why it is going to tighten surveillance. Again, we have been picking up key ideas that how reforms and also vigilance is very important for stock market. Kharif area up by 11%. You must know which crops are Kharif. You must know which crops are Rabi. You must know about import of the oilseed oils. You must know about the maize and the corn imports, and we are going to have India UK, India US, and other kind of trade relations. So in that context, in those free trade agreements also, you have to see that what is coming, what is going on, and also we have to know the number, that this much of this much amount is actually we are producing, whether it is with respect to wheat or whether it is with respect to rice, vegetables, and also fruits. This is going to help us to write mains answer more effectively. India rethinking EV policy post push rare earth curbs. So there may be a little bit of change because there is a clampdown by China. So government's electric mobility plan has been largely focused on replacing internal combustion engines. Most categories are actually most other categories are facing high taxes. Government aims that 30% of the newly registered private cars and 40% of buses will be electric within 5 years. So the question is that rare earth magnets are crucial for EV manufacturing. They are needed for making permanent magnet synchronous motors also. These magnets also play a major role in other vehicular components also. China has a stronghold over these rare earth components. So that is why rare earth magnets, especially neodymium iron boron, is very important for the films, and how it works, we have to see. You just Google it, and they are very crucial for EV manufacturing. They are very, very important for, as I just said, making of permanent magnet synchronous motors. SEBI's action against Giant Street is a step forward, but the systemic reforms are essential. Again, we are again put. So what are the systemic reforms? The systemic reforms involves a kind of not too much regulation, but then a smart thinking, and the power of financial education is very, very important. Okay, uh, greed must not be there. Antidote to greed is the financial education, disciplined investing, and the SEBI's mutual fund Sahi Hai campaign has raised awareness about mutual funds. So that is why unchecked financial muscle and speculative frenzy can destabilize markets. Car fuel efficiency norms should not chase illusionary uniformity. This is one point. So the corporate average fuel efficiency 3 norms, they are there so that per mile less emission of carbon dioxide must take place. But then, do you think this is the only solution? Because Maruti Suzuki, which is holding more than 40% of share, has argued that this system disadvantages fuel efficient, low emission small cars. So that is why, if it is going to be like that, then there is a problem, because Tata Mahindra and Toyota are opposed to differentiated standards, maintaining that any relaxation undermines collective effort to lower emission. So there is a disagreement, and there is a deeper self-interest, uh, because certain companies are against the concession given to small cars, and Maruti is having a great share of small cars. Each manufacturer is protecting its market's stronghold under the guise of fairness and sustainability. But what we must do, what India must do. So compliance must be there, stricter benchmark must be there, rigid standards must be there, and people must be made more aware. Car emission control, one more example is here. So relaxation in CAF 3 for small cars would be a step in the right direction, because it will catalyze industry to think more as engineers. So manufacturers love large cars for the simple reason they make them far greater product profits than small cars. So that is why it is a common sense answer which we have to put it up, which we have to write. So the argument against site-specific CAF 3 norms used by auto companies is that consumers are moving away from small car to large cars. But there may be more to that trend than meets the eye. A lot of first-time buyers are still probably opting for smaller cars and used cars. So huge growth of mid-segment is there. Huge growth of mid-segment car is actually, and it is there. It is based on the demand from multiple car ownership families and from second-time buyers who are keen on moving up the value chain. So, इसीलिए manufacturing of either of these trends serve as an overall national interest. We have to see from that perspective. So, it is a debate which we have to see. How weather derivatives can shield cash flows. This is a very important point. The National Commodity and Derivative Index is linked with, it has linked and packed with Indian Meteorological Department. India's first weather derivatives. PT में question आ सकता है. What are weather derivatives? So derivatives are risk-sharing tools used by business investors and institutions to guard against future uncertainties. So value किस पे डिपेंड करती है? Value डिपेंड करती है क्या होने वाला है, टेम्परेचर क्या है, बारिश कहाँ होगी, धूप कहाँ निकलेगी. So farmers can hedge wheat price drops, airlines can manage jet fuel costs, exporters can protect against currency swings, and financial crisis can be a little bit predicted. So these are the tools. So well-designed weather derivative contracts supported by a rich ecosystem, they are going to cut down the speculation to make weather more tradable, to more measurable, time-bound, location-specific, independently verifiable. Okay, so hot degree, heating degree days, cooling degree days are simple indices. That is what it is there. So they are traded. So if they are traded, then they are going to help the farmer at the end of the day also. So an example is also given here. A rainfall futures contract might pay 5,000 per mm a shortfall if actual June rainfall in Nashik dropped below 100 mm threshold. So the data source IMD होना चाहिए या approved private station होना चाहिए. In parts of Rajasthan, informal markets still operate based on weather cues like cloud cover, monsoon prediction. So instant data is going to help the things. It is going to help the stakeholders, and it is going to make all stakeholders understand about climate risk resilience. Enhance credit quality for banks, incorporate real-time market-based feedback in the government policy, deepen climate risk resilience. So it will boost for high quality data that is going to help in the right direction. So there is a difference also. Insurance can be helpful, can be more helpful than derivative when the loss is catastrophic, specific, and asset-based, such as storm damage or a warehouse destroying inventory. It will compensate actual losses. Derivatives, by contrast, they are actually non-catastrophic. Recurring risks such as low rainfall, cooler temperature, that affect revenues but not assets. That is what you have to understand. It may be asked in the prelims and also in the interview. What India can learn from China? Dedicated to the state's mission. So Indian policymakers are learning from China. We are learning. It's not that we are not learning. We have a lot of our own wisdom also. But the question is that socialism versus capitalism debate. The questions are there in the general studies paper 2 and the economics paper 2 also. But the idea is that what kind of growth India had seen from 1960s, 70s, and 80s onwards. Because in 1980s, China and India's economies were comparable size and per capita income was also same. But now China's per capita income and GDP are about 5 times India's. So China's high-tech manufacturing sector has grown 48 times larger. That is what is the key point. So we have not been able to do so. And China's remarkable economic growth and industrial strength, it has made US also wary of it. So that is why when US presses India to come closer, how we should react. India must become more self-reliant, must become more strong. US capitalism and Chinese socialism, they are actually having their own benefits and their own lacunas. So we have to keep our mind open, and we have to understand that what kind of things can work for India in the longer term. We have to slog, we have to understand the crises are there, and at the same time we have to find solutions, because the governance system between India and China are very, very different. Because there is communism, or you can say socialism, and there is an hierarchy, and also no kind of dissent is tolerated. So governance in China is actually looked after in a way where central power is there, but then at the local level it is highly decentralized. Local communities are given freedom to craft solutions suited their needs. Performance of local party officials is measured by the satisfaction of their communities with progress. So Chinese leaders and economists are system thinkers. They see the economy as only component of complex social system. So we can learn a couple of ideas, and we can also move forward. Market risk is there of the AI guided investment, because it is a kind of a negative influencer also, and also it may create more risk, because after all the elements cannot be seen from the perspective of AI only. Okay, so AI tool can help, but then AI tool cannot help always in context of loss and gains. Customer data, one keyword. Submarine cables, two keyword. When we speak about telecom, infrastructure. So the telecoms are very, very important with respect to not only cyber warfare, but also when we see the two countries are at war, and also it is a very, very strategic development and growth in nature, because the rising tide of attacks on telecom and computer networks worldwide, India must also be ready for such kind of developments when we have great negative forces around us. So satellite system, one another keyword, and operations and management control is also very, very important. So that is why uh, telecoms must disclose vulnerabilities, cyber crisis plans, and network architecture. Must keep records of original origin of the shipment and share details with the government when asked. And subscriber database is also very, very important to be taken care of. So with these perspectives and ideas, we end our session today, and try to understand my point that more and more you learn, more and more you deeply and passionately work, and weekly revisions are there, more and more there is a chance for success, whatever are the circumstances. Ansarkari, with its pedagogy and also its calling for getting success of the candidates in all circumstances, stand true to its initiatives. Thank you very much.